committee meeting within about 5 minutes, right, Mr. Villanueva? Good morning and welcome to the Arts, Parks, and LA River Committee. I am joined by my colleagues Bob Blumenfield and David Rue. We have quorum and we will begin the meeting. So what I'd like to see, Mr. CLA, is before we start the items, what I'd like to ask my colleagues of is that we move items 3 through 5 on consent without objection. Seeing as there are no objections, we will move forward with item number 1. Mr. Sutton-Willis.
Item number 1, a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. John Wirfs to the Cultural Affairs Commission for the term ending June 30, 2017, and Mr. Wirfs is here at committee this morning.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Wirfs, and please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your appointment.
Excellent. Thank you. Good morning. It's an honor to be here in front of you today. I came to Los Angeles a little over 20 years ago and have made it my home since then. I studied architecture at the University of Southern California and have worked in the profession since then. I work for a California-based architecture firm with an international presence here in LA. As architects, the profession has to achieve a lot of different things. But I think at the heart of it is really looking for those positive, long-lasting impacts in the built environment, and to be able to have the opportunity and privilege to be appointed to a commission that would help contribute to that would be an honor. So thank you for your consideration.
And question, Mr. Wirfs, what is your interest in serving on the Cultural Affairs Commission?
Well, I think it's a Department of Cultural Affairs, and then the Commission itself has a unique opportunity to touch both the lives of the residents as well as the visitors to Los Angeles, and that's a responsibility I think that is tremendous. And in architecture, to be able to have an opportunity to contribute positively to the built environment, especially through the arts, would be amazing. I think that's just a dream of mine. And
from your perspective, what are some of the objectives that you bring to the table in particular?
Obviously we have an LA-focused practice, and we've always looked to be able to, make LA a better place, especially with public spaces. I think, the arts, cultural affairs has the ability to make interventions in public space moving forward that could really, really make a difference in people's lives. And I think that's of primary interest. I'd like to meet more with the staff as well as the general manager to find out what's on their objectives, as well as with you, council members, to find out what you might be able to be looking for as well.
And what do you think are some of our biggest opportunities, just from a cultural affairs, cultural arts, cultural heritage perspective?
Again, I come back to public space. I think those are the places and opportunities where impacts last for generations well beyond our own. I work in downtown, I live in CD 13, and I look at the public spaces that we have, and every single one of them looks like a great opportunity that we can create that place or space for folks to interact with the city through arts and culture, and also leave repositories of the great things that we hope to do for the future generation. So, yeah.
Thank you. And what do you think some cities across the nation have a really good, progressive sort of cultural affairs, cultural arts profile?
I've been doing a little bit of homework on that, still getting used to, or getting immersed into it. I think where I came from in Seattle is a great place where they've been able to have a strong culture around arts, public arts specifically. I think in San Francisco it's another. I think we've all seen that LA is coming into its own in the arts arena. Every other week or month it seems like there's another article recognizing the movement of arts in Los Angeles, and I think we're poised to do great things here.
And one of something of particular value to me personally, especially since being on the city council, is making art and cultural experiences accessible to all Angelenos across the city, the 469 square miles of the city of LA. What do you think we could do to help further that goal?
Well, I'd like to talk more with you about that as well, see if there are specific items. I think there are areas of development that are being looked at currently. The river, I think, is a great example. Downtown is another great example. I know that we do incorporate some public art into our libraries, but there are enough public facilities, I think, that are a great opportunity to continue to provide access to art and art programming for the city.
Thank you. Colleagues, Mr. Rue?
Thank you, John, for wanting to serve, and I think the city is privileged to have your service. I know I've known you for a long time, and I know you have the community at heart, and you also bring, you increase the diversity of an already diverse board, and I'm very excited about the Cultural Affairs Commission. I'm very excited about the Cultural Affairs Department with the new general manager at the helm. I mean, there's all these new and exciting things happening, and and actually, it's nothing new. You guys are bringing to light what's already going on in Los Angeles. We are a beacon and overflowing with culture and the arts, and it's just a matter of you helping the residents of LA as well as the rest of the nation know all the things that we do. So I'm very excited about your service. I mean, the only thing is you went to USC, but
Don't hold it against me.
I won't hold it against you. But you can make it up by helping serve Los Angeles, and thank you for your service. And I know you have the community always at heart, and thank you for bringing a different perspective that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No one's perfect, David. Mr. Blumenfield.
Well, thank you. You've asked a lot of great questions. I just want to add my voice. I'm glad you're choosing to take this on. And as the West Valley representative, remind you that the arts spreads the entire city, and even as far away from here as the West Valley, we value the arts, and we want to encourage that and make sure that we're all part of that equation as we move forward on exciting new prospects for the city. So I just want to welcome you, and I'm glad to support your nomination.
Absolutely. Look forward to visiting.
And I personally cannot think of a better choice to be on this commission, so I commend you for being willing to step up, and the mayor for your appointment as well.
Thank you.
So I think that we'll have unanimous consent. Oh, we're joined by, I'm sorry, Mr.
Councilmember
Price.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. Apologize for being a little tardy, Mr. Chairman.
No worries.
But I'm just excited to support the appointment also.
Thank you.
We know how important cultural arts is in our community, and it's a tool for economic development. As chair of economic development, I'm always mindful of how significant, how important the arts play. And our challenge is making sure that every community really benefits, every community is exposed, and that we promote all of the community arts that exist. So I look forward to working with you, collaborating, and making this appointment something that we both can be proud of. Thank you.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. All right. Yes.
I'd just like to state for the record, we have no public comment cards for this or for the 3 consent items.
That is correct. All right, thank you. Thank you for that. All right, so without objection, we will move your appointment forward for adoption to the full city council.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Sutton-Wells, that brings us to item number 2.
Item number 2 is continued from the September 21, 2015 meeting. Is Department of Recreation and Parks report relative to the Los Angeles River Recreational Zone and the ability of the Mountains Recreation Conservation Authority to manage recreation activities in the designated rec zone area.
Thank you, sir. And we are joined by James Latham from the MRCA and Mr. Kevin Regan from Recreation and Parks. Please, gentlemen, start your remarks.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm going to be giving a report based on last season's activities along the River Recreation Zone. In the Sepulveda Basin, we had a total of 2,193 participants, 717 youth, 1,276 adults, and there were 200 non-program participants. Those would be folks that are kayaking on their own. In Elysian Valley, we had 1,781 participants, 304 youth, 1,327 adults, and 150 non-program participants. Some points of interest: we had 3 72-hour closures during the season, either due to weather or spills. In Elysian Valley, we had a boat race that attracted approximately 140 people, 60 of them kayakers. The race went from Clearwater to Marsh, and then a second leg of the race did the entire stretch of the Elysian Valley River Recreation Zone. We had 2 free community paddle events. Those were always very popular. The third, however, was closed. We had a third one scheduled. It was closed for rain. A new access point opened near the Frog Spot, and this allows for midpoint exit and entry for kayakers that may have limitations. In the Sepulveda Basin, kayakers were redirected around a section known as the Grand Canyon due to erosion. There were some fears of possible injury due to slides, and that was a logistics problem unto itself due to signage having to be in the river. We conducted cleanups in and around the river throughout the season. Some were planned, others were informal, which the public brought out on their own. MRCA was able to remove trash and debris. Had several vegetation fires outside the recreation zone in the Sepulveda Basin, with the exception of one spot fire that did occur within the actual zone itself. Also, a small portion of concrete was removed from the Sepulveda Basin during the cleanup with the help of community members and our Bridge to Parks youth program. For injuries, really only had scrapes and bruises reported and some fatigue, with the exception of one broken fibula on a vendor's trip.
I'm sorry, say that again. One broken what?
Fibula?
Okay.
Right. So a little bit more serious. However, it was reported to us a few days after the occurrence. I don't have further information on that. There were 0 calls to the 911 system during the season. Rangers continue to provide service and patrols along the river, able to respond to some of the more minor things, meaning that people don't have to dial 911. There was a variety of media reports were conducted along the river during the season, including PBS, LA Weekly, Comedy Central, Why Travel, and a German documentary. As far as funding, last season both the Department of Water and Power and the Bureau of Sanitation provided $50,000 each, which helped with ranger patrol and maintenance. A funding source needs to be identified this season. We have not heard if DWP or the Bureau of Sanitation will be committing as they had in previous seasons. 2 full-time rangers were assigned and backed up by others during the season. We had over 200 hours of river patrol, both kayak and bicycle, from our volunteer river safety unit. For the upcoming season, we are on schedule to open both river recreation zones on Memorial Day. Elysian Valley will open September 25th, and the Sepulveda Basin will be open until September, sometime in September. Also, the MRCA will be issuing multi-year permits for our vendors, and that helps with stability for the vendors, being able to be able to proceed without having to renew yearly. And then lastly, the Hesco Barriers. The Hesco Barriers are outside of the river recreation zone and do not affect river access or any other issues.
And just to expand on what the Hesco barriers are, those are the barriers by the Army Corps of Engineers in advance in anticipation of perhaps record flooding that never hit because El Nino didn't really affect Los Angeles like we expected it to be. It's my understanding from the Army Corps that the Hesco barriers along the bike trail are going to be going very, very soon and open up the bike trail again. It's mostly in Elysian Valley and Atwater Village. And then other barriers not on the bike trail will stay up for a while until there's an assessment on how bad El Nino looks next year, because it did cost in the low millions for the Army Corps, the federal government, to install these. Thank you for that, Ranger Latham. Mr. Regan, anything to add to this from your perspective?
Sure. Well, good afternoon, council members. Kevin Regan, Assistant General Manager of Operations for the Department of Recreation and Parks. I just wanted to compliment this committee on all their hard work and getting the river recreation zone started and running, and the MRCA for the great work that they've done managing it and patrolling it with their rangers. As we heard in the report, it was a great success, and I'm sure it will continue to be. The Department of Recreation and Parks did file a written report with your committee, and we're here really to just answer any questions you may have, and we're happy to do so.
Thank you so much. A few questions. Let's see. Now, you gave those numbers for both locations, the Sepulveda Basin location and then the Elysian Valley Rec Center. How do those compare with previous years? So, for example, this coming summer will be the 4th summer for Elysian Valley, and I believe it'll be the 5th summer for Sepulveda Basin. What trends do you see based on the numbers from last summer at each location?
Yes, so the numbers are slightly lower. I don't have the exact amount from previous years, but they are slightly lower. I would generally attribute that to we are now in our 5th season. And so, even though there is excitement, it's dipped a little bit. However, it shows that there is a desire to use the river as a recreation area.
And you could get those numbers, and so we could take a look at exact percentages,
Yes.
just so we could help inform our approach. That would be very helpful. And then you want to talk a little bit about liability. It sounds like the program was managed extremely well, because I would argue that nearly every kayaker tips over at one point or another, and the fact that you've had such, just minuscule numbers of injuries, notwithstanding the broken leg, it sounds like a real success. Can you talk about risk of liability, how the indemnification, et cetera?
Sure. Well, there is indemnification, and I don't have specifics necessarily about that, but all participants sign a waiver. Our staff, but also the vendors that are out there providing the tours and services, have gone through quite extensive training, and that's one of the ways that we use to mitigate any injuries. Trainings include swift water awareness level training, low-angle rescue, and having our partners trained at that type of level has really helped prevent any kind of major injury. Also, our communication with our vendors has been really good. We've provided radio frequencies to use along the river for rangers that are out on patrol to be able to monitor when those tours are out, and the rangers have been able to respond, in addition to just open communication in general.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the cost, it's been jointly funded for the last several years in that same arrangement that you described, 50-50, $50,000 each. Do you anticipate that cost changing over the next 5 years, or being roughly the same?
Well, it probably would change depending on if the recreation, there are many factors. So if the recreation area grows, or if we're providing patrol year-round, then obviously the costs would change.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you mentioned the MRCA looking at a multi-year plan. Is that a 5-year plan, or is that a different
I believe
comparison?
it's 2 years, and that's for the vendors to be able to have their permit for 2 years, as opposed to the way it is now. Each season, they're renewing their permits.
Right, to help determine some certainty. And then you mentioned the Grand Canyon location in Sepulveda. Has that been mitigated so that when the recreation zone opens again, that is no longer a problem or an obstacle?
We are in communication with the Army Corps, and a lot of it's going to have to do with what they say. As it is right now, and I'll describe it, it's a natural bend in the river in the Sepulveda Basin where the river bends and it is undermining a cliff area. The way it was mitigated last season was signage, and we were able to guide and steer kayaks around that area. And that falls to our communication with our vendors. They're very good. The vendors were instructed on what it should look like and how it should look like. We installed the signage with the approval of the Army Corps, and we had no issues. Mm-hmm. But we are in communication with the Army Corps about that.
And you mentioned, media attention. It's gotten quite a bit of media attention. I would argue that the Comedy Central segment was when they saw me kayaking in the river, and that's why they were involved.
Yes.
All right. I thought I'd try that as a joke. All right. Thank you, Bob. All right, colleagues, any questions or comments? Mr. Blumenfield.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great. I love the idea of this kind of partnership and recreation in those areas. My questions may be a little bit of a digression from the activities that are happening. I wanted to ask a little bit about, maybe this falls to Ms. Reagan, about the other areas outside of Sepulveda Basin and Elysian Valley that where the bike paths are, and particularly whose responsibility it is to do enforcement along those areas. And the reason I ask is we have, Headwater starts in my district, great bike paths, and the vision of the river is awesome to connect the 51-mile linear park. But one of the problems that we're starting to see is that on the underpasses, people are doing drugs and doing other things, and they're making it less family-friendly as a bike path. And try to get enforcement out there. We get a lot of back and forth. Police think it's Reckitt Parks, depending on what it is, say it's police, and maybe there's a chance to have MRCA rangers patrol part of that, but I believe that's outside of the area that's part of this agreement. So I kind of want to drill down a little bit on whose responsibility it is for enforcement along the recreational pathways, the bike paths, in the areas outside of the zone.
So, again, Kevin Regan with Recreation and Parks. Just a little bit about the river. The jurisdiction, the responsible agency for the LA River is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, so federal government. There are portions of the river that actually run through Griffith Park and are part of the land grant of Griffith Park, and some of the recreation areas actually run through Griffith Park. However, the Army Corps has exercised their easement rights to the entire channel. And so in terms of responsibility for the river itself and adjacent infrastructure, it's U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. However, if you're talking about law enforcement within the city of Los Angeles and on bike paths, it would really probably be on a case-by-case basis depending on where the bike path was. However, in general terms, the LAPD can enforce the law within the city of Los Angeles, even inside the river. So could the park rangers. However, typically Recreation and Parks Department has no jurisdiction within the Los Angeles River on most parts of it. Now, some of the bike paths, we do have MOUs with DOT for maintenance, but that's really only for maintenance, not necessarily law enforcement. So what I was trying to do is just lay the groundwork of kind of like the jurisdictional boundaries. The reason the MRCA was able to go in during in this recreation area and do enforcement and also, help out with the programming and patrols and safety, et cetera, is because their agency is a little bit unique, neither a county or a city agency. They do have an ordinance which allows them to have jurisdictional areas if they're brought in, but we had to get permission from the Army Corps for them to do that. The permissions didn't really come from the city, it came from the Corps. And then the partnership was with the city. So conceivably, park rangers could enforce the law. LA City park rangers could enforce the law on bike paths adjacent to the river. So could the LAPD. But I think it's more than likely if there's problems on the underpasses or problems in the river itself or in areas adjacent to the river that are under the jurisdiction of the Corps of Engineers, they actually have some liability for that as well. They do have federal rangers. You don't see many of them in Los Angeles, but it doesn't mean that they couldn't apply resources if they were asked. So I think that there is no clear answer as to who's responsible for this, and I think it would also come down to a question of resources.
So I appreciate that answer, but it's not very satisfactory for me and for my community. What would it take to get the MRCA, and have we considered entering into an agreement where they would expand their jurisdiction along the recreational paths to include the bike paths? Because I would feel a lot better knowing that there was somebody who was patrol. Because under the arrangement that you've mentioned, nobody really will patrol unless there's a problem in their call.
That's correct.
And so that means the problem builds until it gets so bad that there's an incident.
I mean, there is no agency funded to patrol those paths, and I mean it may be unsatisfactory, but it's actually also reality. So, to answer your question regarding getting the MRCA in, absolutely. But again, they're not going to patrol that area without being paid. So, if the city could identify funding, however we did it, whatever the mechanism was, or jointly with the federal government, what it would take is either a letter of non-objection or some type of an agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers to allow the MRCA to do that, and funding the MRCA for those activities at whatever level. They would obviously have to come up with a budget.
Sure, but it conceivably could be an expansion of what we already have.
It could. It very well conceivably, as long as the MRCA had the the staff to be able to do it and receive the funding, I'm sure they could do it.
Because I would certainly love for us to look into that and maybe get a report back on the feasibility of doing something like that.
Right. I think one of the things that we're here, actually, Rec and Parks is here to say, I didn't really say it in my opening comments. It is sort of alluded to in our report, but I just wanted to reiterate that the Department of Recreation and Parks is not the responsible agency for the river. So if that's the direction we're going, and we're asking the department to, either fund or work on programs in the river, our general manager is not opposed to that. Obviously, if we're looking for a department to place, I mean, we are the recreation department, obviously, so it kind of makes sense. However, what we're saying is it's not our jurisdiction. We're not funded or staffed to do any of the work, to manage the contracts, to manage the program, to patrol or enforce ordinances or laws in the river, negotiate agreements with the Army Corps. Those are very difficult long-term negotiations. So any of that work that Rec and Parks would be asked to do would require funding and staffing.
I appreciate that. We're in a tough spot because, of course, the city did build a number of bike paths. It's not traditional, LA River that the Corps maintains and nobody goes there. We have created a wonderful amenity in parts of this, and we have every intention of creating an even better amenity that's linked. So this is a nut we're going to have to crack at some point.
So sorry, I just thought of something else that I didn't say. So one other possible solution would be Recreation and Parks does have agreements for many of the bike paths with DOT where we provide, we do the maintenance, we clean up, et cetera, sweep them, stuff like that. We are trying, our general manager has spoken to all of you about expanding our park ranger program. So perhaps we could look at supplemental funding in future budget years to put LA City Park Rangers on those bike paths. And that certainly is doable as well if we had the resources to do it.
Yeah. It's a conversation whose time has come, and especially with all this attention at the river and identifying funding sources. And we've got we have the Enhanced Increment Financing District study underway right now, and the way things are moving, I think a future sort of joint powers authority or some similar arrangement is inevitable. I would argue, to Mr. Blumenfield's point, all arrows seem to be pointing to more activation at the river. So appreciate your comments. Mr. Rue.
Oh, yeah. Is this the same program where council officers get invited to kayak down the LA River?
Yes.
Oh. I unfortunately couldn't go, but my staff went because I couldn't do the change of clothes because it was in the middle of the day, and I planned to go on the next one. And my staff who did go on the kayaking adventure enjoyed it very much, and I think this is a very great activity, especially with all the exciting things that's happening at the LA River, for us to bring more attention. I think this is.
You can wear your suit. We'll just give you a life.
No, I saw them. They got
give you a life
muddy.
jacket.
Yeah. So.
Councilmember O'Farrell almost jumped in a pool in his suit one time, but he.
I kind of did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of halfway. Took
Yeah.
your jacket off.
Yeah, I did. That's true.
Well, that's a story for another day. So, yeah, I think this is a very good program. based on, and right now you guys are asking for a 5-year, for a 5-year.
Well, this is just a discussion item, but I'm going to have some recommendations.
Oh,
But the objective, Mr. Roux, is to take a longer view so that every single year we're not having the same conversation,
Right.
which will enable us to do better long-term planning. And I think that we just wanted to have this discussion today for everyone to sort of get a sense of the direction that a consensus direction for us to head into.
No, and I think that's a good long-term view of making this longer term, so you don't have to always come back every year. But based on Councilmember Bloomfield's concerns about expansion, some sort of regular updates is also good, so we could take advantage of potential new opportunities that come, so we could expand. Because the only concern is if we do a 5-year, then not to say you guys could just rest on your laurels, but I'm sure it's hard enough to do what you're currently doing, but I'd like to, as Councilman Blumenfield is talking about, push so we could do more.
Definitely. Thank you. No further questions. I have one that I didn't ask, and that is, so you mentioned, Ranger Latham, that last year there was a bit of a dip in terms of attendance. It would be good to have a sense of capacity at the 2 locations. If we could have even some ballpark figures of what the capacity would be, and that kind of data I think would help us as well in terms of identifying in the future other opportunities for kayaking and river uses. So that was the last thing I wanted to say. All right, we have one public comment. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
I think we're good. One public comment from Stephen Appleton of, on behalf of himself and LA River Kayak Safari.
Yeah, I just wanted to join the conversation briefly. Thank you, committee members and Councilmember O'Farrell, who's really taken a lead on this. And I will testify to the fact that Councilmember O'Farrell did go in the water, and it was comedic. We've got new kayaks, and they don't tip as easily.
But, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I got one question. When was the kayak trip? How come I missed that?
Oh, well, you got to go.
I mean, everyone's talking about the kayak trip.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's significant that this committee is Arts, Parks, and River. My background is as an artist. I've done a lot of public art, both a little bit in this city and in other cities. And I came at this as a community member in Elysian Valley to really lead people down the river in my backyard, and came at it from a community point of view of wanting to enable youth and education as well. And so it's really about a minds and hearts kind of thing about the river and the future of the city. We've taken a lot of people down the river in the last 3 years. We work collaboratively with the Friends of Los Angeles River and also out of the Frog Spot, which is a place we've also helped to enable. Couple things I hope will happen. I concur very much with this conversation about how we look forward on enforcement issues and maintaining those public spaces. We do have a homeless population that creates some issues as we kayak in the river. As well, we want to make sure that the September month is open. Last year it was open because that's the only month we can service school trips, and we took many last year. We also do free community paddle events through that month. It's very important that that stays open. And I just want to thank as well MRCA. These guys are real partners. We go out of town every 2 years with them, do training at the Colorado River. It's really a partnership of communities and organizations, and so I just want to lend my support overall and to the long-term planning process, which I think is really critical to make this serve everyone and serve the city best. So thank you very much.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I just want to comment, the Frog Spot. Amazing. Thank you for your leadership on that. And it shows what can happen at the LA River. And I really thank you for the leadership on that. And it's an amazing area.
Thank you.
I have to comment and make sure that though we're very much involved in that, and I personally am involved in it, this is really an effort of the Friends of the LA River as well, and chiefly as far as the Frog Spot, but we all share that space and work together.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, just quickly, could you explain a little bit about the school program and your group taking kids out, how that works?
So this is a challenge. So the rec zone season runs from basically end of May, and for the first 2 years, through the beginning of September, meaning most kids are out of school. So last year we made a case for let's extend that into the September month. We hope So far as the latest paperwork, we hadn't heard that it was. We're really arguing passionately for that. Even just with having a short period of time to prepare for that last year, we were able to solicit and work with some local groups, and we took 4 or 5 trips down in September. We're hoping to expand that. It's a tremendous kind of animation of education to be able to have that direct physical experience with wildlife, with nature in your backyard, and we hope we can do more of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that September month, though, is crucial to be able to do it, because that's the only time the kids are not out for the most part. So.
Terrific. Well, thanks again. And Steve is like the best guide you could hope for as well.
Come back. And any of you, honestly, feel free to Councilmember O'Farrell's, I live in his district. I'm an active member in the community. If you are interested in kayaking, please feel free to contact me and work with our group. We're happy to take you down. We'd love to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so colleagues, what I'd like to do is continue this item in committee and request the city attorney in coordination with the Department of Recreation and Parks, MRCA, and any other relevant departments to report back and recommend action to create a 5-year recreational zone program for the LA River, mirrored on the current model used between MRCA, Army Corps of Engineers, the City of Los Angeles, and also a report on what it would look like to operate well into the month of September after the Labor Day weekend. Without objection. All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that is, Mr. Price, we did items 3 through 5 on consent. And so without objection, we will move that instruction on item 2 forward, which brings us to public comment, because that's all the agenda items. And so we will now have general public comment. And we will start with Griselda Mariscal.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Griselda Mariscal, and I live in District 13. Today, you will be hearing from parents who love Hilltop and have benefited from its amazing program. We are here to ask that Bellevue Park remain the home for Hilltop. Will parents who are here with me today please stand? Thank you. I was born and raised in this community. I am the daughter of immigrants. My mother was a seamstress in the garment district of downtown LA, and my father was a handyman. I attended Betty Plaisance Elementary, Virgil Junior High School, Belmont High School, and graduated from Occidental College. I grew up here. This is my home. I am now raising my children here, and I love this community. I love Hilltop Nursery. I work for SEIU United Healthcare Workers West, and my husband works for the Directors Guild of America. For the last 20 years, our work has focused on improving the lives of working families and improving the communities in which we live. Hilltop embodies the values of the work that we do. Parents are active participants in our school, sitting on committees and boards. We do fundraisers for scholarships for kids who grew up like me and who wouldn't have the opportunities that my kids now have. Hilltop families embrace diversity in terms of socioeconomics, race, ethnicity, language, and sexual orientation. Our greatest strength is that we value and are a community of inclusion. Hilltop teachers love our children. Their commitment to each child is amazing. In Hilltop, and it touches my heart. When you ask my daughter, the other one, Sophia, who her best friend is, she will say, Teacher Rudy. When I ask her why, she will say, because he sings songs and reads me stories. She will also talk to me about the trip to space that the class took and the many planets that hang from the ceiling, the clouds on the walls, and the rocket ship that the classroom created, one of the many ideas of these teachers to spark her interest in science.
Okay, Ms. Mariscal, if you could wrap up, or are you done?
Just one. Hilltop has existed for 16 years and has been at Bellevue Park for the last 30 years. Please keep Hilltop at Bellevue Park. Bellevue Park is Hilltop's home.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And you have a little girl there who's going to be a great actor on the stage someday. Next, we have Carmen Maria Flores.
I'm going to translate for her, if that's okay.
Okay.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es María Flores.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Flores.
Mi hijo es Michael Nieto. Él atiende al programa desde el otoño de 2015.
My son is Michael. He attends Hilltop since the fall of 2015.
Hilltop ha impactado la vida de Michael de una forma muy positiva. Él es un niño sordo con 2 implantes cocleares.
Hilltop has dramatically impacted the life of my son. He is deaf and has 2 auditory implants.
A partir de él estar en Hilltop, él comenzó a usar su voz más.
Since he's been at Hilltop, he started vocalizing and saying words more.
Y dejó de hacer el lenguaje de señas.
And he stopped doing sign language.
Gracias a la beca que él recibe en Hilltop,
Thanks to the scholarship that he currently receives at Hilltop,
él puede participar y aprender de otros niños que hablan y escuchan.
he can learn and participate and learn from students who speak and who hear,
Lo cual es maravilloso para su desarrollo en la comunicación oral.
which is incredibly helpful with his oral communication.
En cada fundraising participamos con mucho entusiasmo.
And I participate in every fundraising event with a lot of enthusiasm
Para recaudar fondos para mantener el programa firme,
so that we can raise funds so that we can maintain the scholarship program.
porque sin este programa los niños como mi hijo no pudieran tener acceso a la calidad del preescolar.
Because without programs like this scholarship at Hilltop, my son would not have the opportunity to participate in, and be part of this education opportunity.
Esto me compromete a trabajar duro
This makes me be committed to work hard
y estar aquí pidiendo de que nos dejen el programa que es tan maravilloso y de buena calidad.
and to be here asking you to please maintain the program of Hilltop.
Do you need more time because you're translating, so it's okay.
Thank you. Continúes.
Mi más mayor profundo agradecimiento a Hilltop
My most sincere appreciation and gratitude to Hilltop
por brindar esa tremenda beca
for giving me the scholarship
y incorporar a mi hijo al maravilloso mundo de oír y escuchar.
and for incorporating my son into the wonderful world of those who can hear and speak,
Y pertenecer a tan maravilloso y cálida programa.
and for allowing him to belong to such an incredibly high-quality program at Hilltop. Thank you for
Thank you, Ms.
listening.
Flores. Thank you. Next, we have Terence Houston, followed by Dominic Kim.
Thank you very much for your time. First, I would just like to say, as a resident of CD13 and a supporter of Safe Streets, I'm a huge fan. And I appreciate your leadership in opposing the Neighborhood Integrity Initiative. I think you're doing a great job making Los Angeles a more livable place and a more livable community.
What a lovely thing to hear. Thank you.
And I'm also here today to actually talk about community, specifically the Hilltop community. When my wife and I were looking for a preschool for our child, what we found at Hilltop was a community of parents and children that reflected the broader Silver Lake community. There is socioeconomic and racial diversity, ethnic diversity, and the number one thing we were looking for was creating an extended family for our son. And that is definitely what Hilltop does. So just to give you a little bit of background, in 1962, we started our home at Bellevue Park. The families and parents of Hilltop in the mid-'80s raised the funds and oversaw the building of our current structure. Since then, we have been solely responsible for its maintenance. Dozens of parents donate hundreds of volunteer hours every year in maintenance of our lands and our building. When it is beyond our own expertise, since I am the head of the maintenance committee, which is fairly ironic, when we have something that's beyond our expertise, we hire outside people and we raise the funds ourselves. And just recently, we raised a $2,500 grant to redo the asphalt. We also matched $10,000 in city funds to redo all the landscaping. In short, I'm not here just for my child. At Hilltop, I feel like you see this continuum from 1962 to today and to the future, that we are stewards of that building, we are stewards of the community, and we are stewards for the future families and preschoolers in the Silver Lake community. Thank you so much for your time. Please help us secure our long-term home.
Thank you, Mr. Houston. So I'll tell you what, if the following people could join Mr. Kim at the table, also Maria Aquino, and then Joey Jacoby, and Manuel Haas.
Yes, hi. We are one of Hilltop's scholarship families. We are extremely fortunate and grateful that we're in this program. Currently, I'm the only breadwinner in our household, and my wife was able to take ESL courses because my son was able to go to school. If it wasn't for the scholarship fund, my wife would be home taking care of my son. It would be extremely difficult because my son has OT issues, and my son, this is his second year at Hilltop. He has a speech delay and OT issues. He's been taking therapy for 4 times a week, but just being around other children at Hilltop and with the help of the extremely patient teachers, he's improved so much. He started school with just speaking 2 words, Oma and Appa, but now he's able to say a complete sentence. He smiles more, he makes eye contact, he uses his words rather than hitting, and
that's always good. Always good.
So Hilltop is just a blessing for us. Please protect Hilltop.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Maria Aquino.
Hello, my name is Maria Aquino, and I'm one of the dreamers of this country. And I have the opportunity to have my son, Ruben Rivas, in one of the greatest preschools in LA, which is Hilltop. My husband and I work hard every single day, and I go to school myself. And Hilltop has been providing me extended care for my son. Besides, Hilltop scholarship program has been a tremendous help for us. Otherwise, we couldn't afford to pay school tuition for this great school program. My husband and I work in every single fundraising event to help other families as well. And I believe Hilltop has inspired my dreams for my son, and it's helping my son to have a better future. And I believe Hilltop, Bellevue is a Hilltop's home. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Aquino. And Joey Jacoby.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. I'm a native Los Angelino and I've never been to an event like this, so just thank you all for your service.
Thanks for coming.
I am on the hospitality committee at Hilltop. Like everyone at Hilltop, all the parents are part of the school and different committees to make the school work. And one of the things that we do is help in fundraising to create these amazing scholarships that you just heard about, so that we have a very socioeconomically diverse learning environment for our children. Research has shown that early childhood education is one of the biggest things that are so important for success in later life for kids. So I'm just so happy that my child gets to learn in an environment where everyone gets to learn, no matter if they can pay for it or not. So it's a great community. Another thing that is really great about Hilltop is that it is a racially and ethnically diverse environment, where many of us have biracial kids, and our kids feel safe in that space. That is really hard to find in Los Angeles and in the Silver Lake area. So that's been a great thing for us, and it enables working families to do what to be in the community and help and make their livings, because we know that our children are in a safe space where they're going to learn and be nourished and just cared for in the best way. These teachers and our directors are just some of the most amazing people that give each child such individual attention, which is so hard to do. So what we are here today is just to tell you about our wonderful community so that we can maintain it and stay at Bellevue Park, where we've been since the 60s, and we continue to want to be there. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Ms. Jacoby. Thank you so much. So I have Michael Haas, followed by Kino Viland, followed by Stephen Mejia, my apologies. Do we have all three? Stephen Mejia, Michael Haas, and Kino Viland? All right.
Yes.
Gentlemen.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. On January 9, 2015, 50 seniors from the Sherman Oaks East Valley Senior Center sent a petition to you to bring your committee to meet with us. We have not heard thus far any response to the petition, which was followed up by a letter from me, so I'm here to make a personal request. Now, what would we be discussing when we came out? I have drafted something that can be distributed.
Distribute it, yes.
And basically, there is a lack of accessibility of toilets and doors at park facilities, including the one you would be visiting. In addition, there are broken sidewalks that should be given priority in terms of repair around the facilities where there are senior centers. If you've seen the problems that people have with the bleeding, the results, you'll know why we're asking for that. In addition, the LA River project seems not to have made any provision for seniors. The city of Atlanta sets aside parts of its parks designated as senior corners with appropriate signs and accommodations for seniors. Why not LA? There are, of course, therapeutic pools at some parks, but there needs to be more. And so my time is up.
Oh, go ahead and wrap up your last sentence, Mr. Haas.
But thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm representing, of course, the Sherman Oaks Seniors Gazette, and so I also have a copy of their latest.
Thank you. Thank you. And after we adjourn, I'll chat with you, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Mr. Viland?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi. I'm a Hilltop Nursery School parent alumnus, and daughter is 12 years old, graduated in 2008. And just wanted to speak in support of Hilltop and everything that they've provided our family and community. Because I know it's been mentioned before today already, but I just want to reiterate that socioeconomic diversity is something our family really values. We've benefited tremendously from being part of their community. And we realize also that it's not only the parents that have been so eager to volunteer and fundraise on behalf of Hilltop, but it's also the continuity of the school has been maintained by the administrators who are still there and have been there since we were there. And I just, really hope that everything is taken care of to maintain their ability to continue the school as it is.
Thank you, Mr. Vilan. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Mejia.
Good morning, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Stephen Mejia. I'm the Community Programs Manager of Friends of the LA River. I also work with Louis in terms of his policy and sort of advocacy work. Just wanted to let you know we had a great weekend this weekend. Many of us are still recuperating back in the office. So, of course, I'm talking about our great Los Angeles cleanup that many of your city agencies actually helped us put on. Just this weekend, we had about a little under 2,000 people out at Sepulveda Basin, Betty Davis, Glendale Narrows Riverwalk, and Tahunga Wash and Haynes Canyon, so around Pacoima in that area, helping volunteer for 3 hours on a Saturday. And then just remember, this Saturday wasn't exactly the coldest Saturday that we've had in a while, so a lot of interest from the community, and this is actually a pretty significant growth from what we saw last year. So really just wanted to give you an update of this opportunity of the committee meeting to let you know how this weekend went. We wanted to thank you and your staff for the opportunities to work with them and putting this on. We're expecting this weekend, our cleanup we're expecting about 4,000 people through the Glendale Narrows, which includes obviously some of your districts. And just wanted to let you know that, we're getting very thankful for the opportunity. It was a great success. A lot of wildlife, a lot of trash was picked up. And it was really just a way to engage the community in a really open dialogue and a really service dialogue about what it is that's going on the river, what can we do, and what the city's vision for it is moving forward. So just wanted to thank you for that. I have flyers here if you want some more. I'm sure you've gotten plenty over email. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer them. But just wanted to thank you overall, and hopefully we'll see you out there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mejia. I think I can speak for myself, certainly, but I believe we all love working with FOLAR and the great work the organization has done for decades now. And so please leave those flyers and we'll distribute them in our office for people who walk in as well. What was the question I was going to ask you? I had a question and it flew right out of my head. Oh, so since we enacted the plastic bag ban in Los Angeles, anecdotally, I'm at the river literally every day of the week because of where I live and where I dwell. It seems that after a rain event, there's fewer plastic in the river. Do we have any proof or further anecdotal feeling about that?
Sure. Actually, so we actually do a trash sort at 2 different sites each weekend, and so we're talking about 3 weekends. We've seen already a markedly lower amount of plastic bags or plastic as an element of the trash we pick up. There's still a lot of bulk. We're still sorting through some of that data right now, so I couldn't tell you exactly what we found. But we've already seen that there's definitely a reduction. And I think actually even before this, when we were talking about the plastic ban, we actually had a conversation with Bureau of Sanitation about their waste stream in terms of what they were seeing. And we know that they've documented some market reductions there too. So I think it's actually kind of surprising to see how much less plastic. There's definitely other forms of trash you can still find, but definitely less plastic bags.
And I asked that question not to even convey that these cleanups aren't vital. It's just encouraging that we're up against a little less than we were before because of the ban, and I think it's a great thing to see, not to mention how that helps wildlife along the river. So I take this opportunity to commend FOLAR and for all the great work you do, and I hope Mr. McAdams is doing better.
He's supposed to be in the office today. We keep trying to keep him away, but he for the last 2 months he's been trying to get back to the office as soon as possible.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Rue.
Yeah, can I just ask, has the trash overall maybe decreased a little, or is it the same?
From what we saw, we had about the same amount of trash. Part of that, honestly, we probably had a little bit more. The amount of trash in the river that we pick out isn't limited by, we don't clean it out. So it's actually the number of volunteers that we have out to be able to take it out. This year, so just to give you some context, the last 3 years we had maybe 3,000 people come out to the cleanup 2 years ago. Last year we had about 6,000. This year we're expecting about 9,000. And so the amount of trash we've been able to pull out has increased. And we're not sure if that's in terms of a reduction in how much trash is going in, but these 40-foot rollout dumpsters, we've been able to fill up 2 of those pretty easily over the last 2 years. So the amount of trash we're able to collect has increased. We're not sure if that's just because there's more trash or it's just we have more volunteers.
Well, but it's not just the plastic bag ban. Mr. Chair, I think that's very crucial, but it's also all the work that FOLAR is doing, all the work that, are earlier with MRCA and the kayaking. People actually know that there's a river now. Yeah. I mean, growing up, I knew the concrete basin that was there, which I thought was a flood channel when I was younger, but I never looked at it, viewed it as a river. But I think all these exciting things that we're doing, I mean, the frog spot, every little thing that we do is educating folks about that there is a river, educating folks about, just being environmentally friendly. And I think, and I hope it gets to a point where we're looking for trash. But we'll get there.
In some places we are. Not this weekend, but we're thinking there's definitely other places that we have to look for trash.
And I think my staff is going to join you at your next cleanup.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Colleagues? And okay, fellas, seeing as there are no other comment cards that I am aware of, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.